So first, I know that you don't work at Wise Readers to Leaders anymore, but I'm wondering, like when you did, how did you like decide to take a job there? How did that come about? Um, so yeah, like how did you hear about Wise Readers to Leaders?
Yeah, so during the summer between my sophomore and my junior year at USC, I heard about Wise Readers through this. It's called USC Gateway. It's like an internship program where they match you to an internship and they give you like a mentor. And so Wise Readers was one of the ones on the list. So I USC I majored in sociology, nonprofits, and I had a minor in education. So when I saw Wise Readers, it was like the perfect combination of everything I was interested in. I had some teaching experience and like classroom experience and stuff beforehand, but not like full time like Wise Readers is for lit leaders. They work with the kids
Right.
for 6 weeks, like all day. So I thought it'd be a really good experience. So I applied and I got the job. So I interned there over the summer. It's very, as you know, it's like, it's an all day thing emotionally, like physically. You have to really, put yourself there and work with the kids. It's a lot of fun, super rewarding. So, fast forward my senior year in at USC, I was looking for, post grad jobs, and I applied to basically all the jobs that I applied to were education related, because that it was the field that I was really interested in. I knew I didn't want to do like necessarily in the classroom like teaching, but I wanted to get some more experience within the educational environment, and preferably in like more of an administrative role.
Mhm.
So I got an email from Riley. She was reaching out because they had a position open for program coordinator. So I read the job description, and it sounded really interesting, like exactly what I was interested in. So I applied, and yeah, that's how I got involved. And I remember when I was applying, like I was like, oh, like this sounds great. Like I interned there. I have like a general idea of how it works, the kids, the mission, and the staff and stuff. So that's why I was like really excited to apply. And then that's how I joined.
Got it. Cool. And then how long were you working there for?
So I worked there about a year and a half.
Nice. How did you decide to, pursue a job in education?
Yeah, so I changed my major so many times. Like I applied to USC through business. And so I got in through business. And then before classes even started, I changed my mind. I did technical theater for a couple of years before college. So I decided to apply to the USC like BFA stage management program. So actually my first year at USC, I was like all theater all the time. Like that was like my thing. And it was a lot of fun, but I during my freshman year I took a class, it's like sociology 101, like an intro class of sociology.
Mhm.
And through that I learned a little bit about, different inequalities, so like gender, race, socioeconomic status. And one of the topics that we talked about was education. And I myself come from like a lower income school. Most of my peers, we qualified for free and reduced lunch, and like, come from first generation households. So all of that. So it was definitely something that I was aware of personally, but I didn't have like that academic background to really understand like how education, and specifically lack of resources within education, impacts students. It was more of like anecdotal, like, oh, like I went through this, or like my friends went through that. It wasn't like so much academic. So when I took that sociology class and got exposed to that, it was something that really sparked my passion. So I decided like I wanted to learn more about that. So I took a an education class just to kind of like get a feel for it.
Mhm.
And I loved it so much. And so then I decided to like switch my major to sociology and then add a education minor. And then later on, I decided to add my nonprofit major, like the second major, to kind of like combine all of them. Um, and so with that, I still wasn't sure like what route through education I wanted to take. I was interested for a while in like counseling, like high school student counseling. Um, but yeah, I mean, just generally, I became very interested in educational equity and like social justice through education,
Mhm.
because of that sociology class. I would say that's kind of like the root coupled with like my experience.
That's super interesting and super cool. And it's nice to hear how um like even though you might not have known like where you wanted to go in the beginning, like you still found a way to find something that you were interested in and find something that you were like um wanting to explore, and
Yeah.
like that kind of fed into obviously your job or your past job at Wise Readers to Leaders. So that's
Yeah.
super cool. Um, and did you have like a favorite part of about your job when you were at Wise Readers to Leaders? Like, was there something that you did that gave you the most joy, or was the
Yeah.
most, I don't know, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I started at Wise Readers like at the kind of like the beginning of COVID.
Hmm.
And so, I graduated, I was like class of 2020, like COVID class, and I had already completed, like all of my schooling. And so when I graduated, I was thinking like, man, like there are kids who are just now starting their school, like they're just now in the middle of the most formative years. And, COVID has been, it continues to be like a huge disruption in education. That whole year, like kids were remote, kids were struggling. As kids from lower resource backgrounds struggled even more during COVID because of lack of resources and Wi-Fi and childcare and all of that. And so one of the biggest things that I was really happy and proud of was, during my time at Wise, I created a lot of different programs, with the help of so many eager high school volunteers. Like we were able to grow and create like the math tutoring program that didn't exist, literacy classes, enrichment classes that also didn't exist pre-COVID. And so through that, we were able to help kids, kind of fight back against that COVID slide, is what we called it. So that was something I was really happy about. And then seeing like getting feedback from the parents, getting feedback from the kids, and seeing like how much is actually helping them, how much they're improving. That was, always something that I was really happy to hear and excited to do, is to keep making that impact and figure out ways that we can help, scholars even more.
Yeah, totally. And I can imagine it must be like super rewarding to like see that progress, and it's like so tangible, and you can um really like take that as like kind of a boost to like the fact that like what you're doing is great work, and it's actually helping, and it's actually making a difference. Um so yeah, that obviously like was a pro that came out of the pandemic and must
Yeah.
have felt super great to be a part of.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just curious, like, was that were those programs started through just like any volunteer, or was it through like specifically the teen board, or like through like the JLL summer program, or did it come from one of those like specific subsections, I guess, of
Yeah.
Wise Readers to Leaders?
So for the literacy classes and the enrichment classes, that was something that we kind of saw, like, so the summer before the first like remote school year, we had the summer program it was fully virtual. And so we were able to see what worked and what didn't, and what kids responded well to. And so we took the knowledge that we gained from over the summer, and we decided to continue that structure. So the literacy classes were structured very similarly to the summer. So we'd have like, morning circle, but this is all after school. So we'd have like a circle meeting, and then we'd read a book and then do an activity. And so we structured the literacy classes to as basically a continuation of the summer. So that was more created just because we saw that it worked in the summer and we saw that the kids were benefiting from it. And so we're like, okay, let's continue this during the school year. We had never done it before, but we came up with the plan. We, meaning like Riley and I, we did the curriculum. We had assigned teachers to different grade levels and opened an application for the kids. So that was a continuation of the summer. Same with enrichment classes. We did enrichment over the summer, all virtual, and we saw that the kids actually, enjoyed it. They had fun. And so that was something that we decided to continue. And so the previous program coordinator, the one who was there before me, her and I, when we were transitioning like my role, she thought it would be a good idea to incorporate the enrichment classes with the teen board. And so that's how we were able to kind of combine that element of scholar engagement with enrichment classes. And so that was connected also like to the summer. So that was those two. Remote reading already existed, but it was only over the phone. Zoom wasn't really like a big thing before COVID. So we basically just kind of revamped the remote reading program and expanded it. But that one already existed. And so then math tutoring was something that we did a survey for the parents to see what kinds of resources they'd want. And so one of the things that they had asked for before, but just wasn't really practical, given we weren't really accustomed to like a virtual setting, was math and science. And so we sent out a interest form to all of the remote reading JLLs to see, if we were to have a math tutoring program similar to remote reading, would you be interested? And so that's how that began, was by getting the feedback from parents and seeing what the highest need was, and figuring out a way to offer that in an efficient way, where we wanted to make sure we had enough volunteers first before we offered it to the parents. So that's why I sent out an interest form, and then after that we set up the schedule, and then we just we did an initial like pilot program 2 school years ago, and then this current school year was the first fully like remote math tutoring from fall to spring, because last year was only spring, because we were still collecting that data, still planning out the program. So that was math tutoring. I think that's all of them.
Yeah.
And then the science classes, like the STEM classes, were like a specific JLL or like teen volunteer was like really excited about doing it. And so again, we like reached out to parents and saw like what kind of feedback they had on what they wanted, what topics, and kind of figured out like the schedule and all of that. And then we coordinated with the JLL who was interested in leading and starting that, to make like a program that fits the needs of wise readers and the parents.
Got it. That's That's super cool that it like, I mean, I feel like there was just so many setbacks with COVID, and like even like when I was at school, like I didn't learn half as much as what I do in person, and it's
Yeah,
just hard to focus and everything. So I think that's, really interesting to like be able to continue to like move forward even in such a difficult learning environment.
right.
Um, yeah. And like when Wise Readers to Leaders went back in person, was there like a significant change in like um just like the progress of education and like um processing um information? Did you see like a big um change from like in person versus virtual in the kids?
So last summer, so we still haven't had a summer of full in person yet. That'll be this summer. So last summer we did hybrid. We did half virtual, half in person. And because of COVID, we weren't able to get all of the sites we normally had. So even our in-person program was very small compared to what it had been previous years.
Mhm.
And I think that, and also the fact that it was the first time the kids, like even before they started school, it was the first time they were back in person for like education. At the beginning, a lot of them were very, shy, nervous, scared. Some of them, honestly probably didn't want to be there. So there was definitely that struggle at the beginning, more of like a psychological struggle,
Right.
which is totally valid. It's a little scary, especially for kids and parents. A lot of parents were concerned also. So I think in terms of like psychologically, there was a little bit of a setback at first, but
Mhm.
then once the kids, got to meet the JLLs and got to meet their LLs and started to get more comfortable, I could definitely tell that they were a lot more like engaged and excited and answering questions and stuff more than they were virtually. I would say in general overall. Obviously, like virtually, there are like a few kids who either way they're gonna be excited, they're gonna share their answers and they're gonna do all that. But in person, I think it gives kids of different personalities a chance to open up a little bit or learn different skills and stuff. So I would say it took a little bit at first of like a little push, but then after that, I definitely saw an improvement psychologically. In terms of academics, I I can't remember, like we did like an assessment during the summer of how the kids did, like their reading levels and stuff. I can't remember what the exact percentages are, but I do know that compared to LAUSD kids who did like non-wise readers, LAUSD kids, they were performing by the end of the summer, they were performing at either at or above level than the LAUSD, standard kids. So I would say, that's a testament to what our program does is it helps kids push through that summer slide. And then in addition to that COVID slide that they experienced.
Right. Yeah. Um, I feel like there's just like a lot of things that like were going against them in terms of both summer and COVID. And so um, it's really nice to hear that they were able to like catch up and were able to like be at the level that they needed to be um, like educationally, but also like getting that experience of like being in person and like coming out of your shell and like being able to express who you are outside of just your home or outside of a place that makes you comfortable. Um,
Yeah.
so, oh, no, you go.
Sorry, I just wanted to add one more thing is the parents were, they gave us really good feedback. They would tell us like, oh, like my kid, during this last school year, they didn't really learn much, like, but they learned so much in just 6 weeks. So we did get a lot of really good feedback from parents who were noticing themselves, how their kids were improving socially and academically. So I just wanted to add that.
Oh no, it's perfect. It's great. Thank you for adding that. Yeah, I think it's all really great, and just that's, really nice to hear that, you know, the summer program and all of the organization is making um like a such a impact on these kids.
Yeah.
Um, and so kind of following that, I was wondering, like what was the most challenging part of your job? And I think you touched a bit on it before, how it's like um, there's a lot of work to the job and it's kind of
Mhm.
like constantly going. But I was wondering, are there any like specific challenges that you faced and how you overcame them, if there were?
Yeah. So I would say, and this, I think this is the case for a lot of the private sector, like nonprofits. Like basically, if you're not a public school or like a public after school program, you run into a lot of issues in terms of access to students. So, like for example, before really before COVID, we had pretty good relationships with the schools that we worked with. So like Garden Grove and Mosque and LA Elementary and all of that. And so we were, because of those relationships we had with the administrators or with the counselors, we were able to, go to parent night or like do something to recruit students or to get involved with their school community. But with COVID and it's not just COVID, it's usually pretty difficult. It's like basically the bureaucracy. LAUSD puts a lot of limits on who, like what organizations or what businesses or what entities can interact with the students or with the parents. Um, and it limits a lot of what we can do. Like we have this amazing program that has been working and we're getting good feedback, but a lot of LAUSD schools are not allowing us to reach their students, to
Right.
even advertise our program.
Mhm.
And that has been a very big issue and concern, because we basically have to figure out how to navigate that. Like, okay, who can we contact or how can we get access to these students? So whenever we were thinking of marketing like the summer program, we reached out to churches, we reached out to community centers, other nonprofits, which was helpful. But it's not like going to the school directly and talking to the parents and the students. So I would say that was the biggest challenge, is navigating that like bureaucratic process of like you can't be here, or if you are here you have to like meet all these requirements, and just making it really difficult for a program that's doing good things to help their community. I can't say that we've um or I, at least during my time there, I didn't um overcome that challenge. Like we basically had to like pause on LAUSD and just do it our own way. I'm not sure how they're going to navigate that moving forward, but it's a very big challenge for sure.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, that definitely makes sense. I never knew that, obviously, like, but
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting to hear about that, like LAUSD and like their system, with good reason, is very like hesitant to give access to their kids to certain like organizations, whether or not they're doing like whether or not they're being helpful or beneficial to the kids.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, that's super like interesting to hear about because I never thought about that before. So thank you for bringing that up.
of course.
But what was like the most important part of your job? Was it like connecting to kids and connecting them to tutors, or was it like um, kind of organizing different programs, or like what was like the most crucial part of your job, if there is something?
Um, can I give two important?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard to pick one, but number one, not in this particular order, but the first one that I wanted to mention was just being very organized, like with our programs expanding and the schedules and the student contacts and the data and all of that, like staying organized is so important. Um, in making sure that the programs are run efficiently. So
Mhm.
that's of like a logistic, like this is very important for the function of the program itself. But
Right.
I think on a different level, what's really important, what I felt was really important was building those relationships with the parents. Um,
Mhm.
because the parents ultimately decide whether their kids are enrolled in the program or not. And if they are enrolled, they are really the driving factor in deciding whether the kids are engaged or they're not engaged. So a parent, kids look up to their parents. They listen to for the most part, they listen to their parents. So if their parent is really involved in wise readers, they're really connected to the community. If they feel supported, then they're going to make sure that their kid is, doing, attending the sessions or going to the summer program, participating, making sure their behavior is on point. And so I think the other part is just really building those relationships with the parents and making them feel like they're supported, like they can ask questions, like they can give feedback. So that is something that is really important.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I mean, like, obviously, kids, like, for the most part, look up to their parents. And, like, I mean, if they're involved in wise readers and engaged, like, they'll replicate them because obviously they're their role models. So, yeah, that, I mean, there's so many pieces. There's like the parent piece and the kid piece and the teen
Mhm.
piece. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, I mean, I think it's really impressive to like um be able to like handle each of the like pieces to make the organization run smoothly.
Yeah.
Um and like when you started working there, did you feel prepared, or did you kind of like feel like you were like in over your head and it was like a really um new um experience, like, or yeah.
It was definitely really new. I didn't know completely what to expect. Well, I guess what I expected did like happen. Like I expected to go in, okay, we have remote reading. We're thinking about expanding programs, but we don't have anything in place. And so I was like, okay, great. So I got started. But once we saw that there was a need for other programs and stuff, and we decided to expand, that was a little bit scary because it was my first job, like professional job out of college, so I didn't have that much experience in that area, and so that was a little intimidating at first. But I very much like challenges, so I wasn't like put off by it. I was really excited about it, and you know once I got some experience with working with the parents and meeting the teen board and strategizing on how we can utilize, volunteers and where we can put students and all of that, then I was able to pretty confidently like come up with a good plan. And so after that point, it wasn't like, super overwhelming.
Mhm.
I'm also a very organized person. So making sure, like I said, like that is one of the most important things, like you asked about earlier. And so because of that, it never felt, super overwhelming.
Got it. Okay, that's good. That's good that it wasn't totally crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously there's challenges, but that it sounds like that was a good thing, and that was
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, actually, sorry.
Oh, no, you go.
So one thing that was a little bit like not overwhelming, but like wasn't necessarily like as prepared for as I would have been, after like a year or two, is my first summer there as a program coordinator. We did a hybrid program, which
Mhm.
created like a whole other like logistical, like, organization and bookkeeping, all of that we had to deal with. And so I had only done one summer in person. And so that was a little bit of an adjustment.
Right.
But Riley, she's like a pro, like she's done like 8 or 9 summers. So she was really helpful in that. So it didn't feel like too bad, but that was something that I just remembered that I wasn't as prepared for because it was the first time we were ever doing it.
Right. And like there's no way that you could have been prepared for it,
Yeah.
but it definitely seems like you um took it in stride and were able to like be successful in that and like um have a overall good experience.
Yeah.
Even if you weren't maybe the most prepared. Um what was it like working with the kids?
Yeah. So I like before Wise Readers, I had a lot of experience with basically K through 12. I was super interested in particularly like the high school grade because at the time I wanted to be like a high school like I was thinking about being a high school counselor. So I was really interested in that age, but I had a lot of experience with middle school and with K through 5. And each grade has like its own need and its own, kids are at different developmental stages
Right.
based on what grade they're in. So it was actually, I really enjoyed, working with the teen board and then working with like a kindergartner. I don't know, because you just see like different perspectives, like different point of views. A kindergartner has, they have, you could say, limited knowledge because they haven't, been around as long, but their perspective is so unique because of that. And so getting to interact with, kids at different extremes, like first grade versus a senior, was really fun and really cool. And also figuring out the best ways to communicate and to lead different grade levels and ages was a little challenging, like, to adjust. It's like, okay, I'm in like 4th grade, just Miss Giselle mode. And then with you guys, I'm like, okay, I'm the team board leader or whatever. So kind of adjusting through that was a little bit of a challenge, but I enjoyed working with all grades because they all have something unique to offer.
Right. And it's like great to have like a variety of like different um kids like at different points in their life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely seems like a nice kind of element to the job of like not just working with one specific grade or one specific age, like being able to get the full spectrum of um, kids in education or learning. um,
Definitely.
yeah. um, and like kind of my last question
Mhm.
um, is like, what was your takeaway after working at Wise Readers to Leaders? Like,
Um, I I think that the what I most remember and like what I guess was the main takeaway was it was really interesting to see how kids of different backgrounds um made friends with each other and worked with each other. Like the scholars versus the JLLs, like they really look up to the JLLs. So it was just really interesting to see how, even though people came from different backgrounds, different religions, different socioeconomic statuses and all of that, to see that everyone worked together so well. And like everyone was there for the kids, and it was very evident. That was something that I hadn't, really experienced or thought about that much. until I was at Wise Readers, and definitely something that I remember is just that image of like everyone there and everyone working together and everyone having fun, and just it being like a really like safe space for the kids and for everyone. And yeah, I just have that image in my head of like being there and like everyone's just like really happy to be there. And it just doesn't matter like what background you come from.
Got it. Yeah, that's really cool to like get to experience that and kind of have like a bird's eye view on like that sort of relationship and connection
Yeah.
between both, teen and younger kid, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are basically all of my questions. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to um, meet with me and talk with me, and it has been really informative. And so, yeah, thank
Of
you for that.
course.